nobody was encouraged to drive in those days. Everybody was encouraged to use public transportation or to carpool, and most everybody did. Even when I worked at the ordnance plant during the Korean War, they still were encouraging us to carpool. And I regularly had a car full of people to distribute around the ordnance plant each morning. And it was kind of fun because you had quite a diverse people riding with you with different ideas and things to talk about, what they thought of the plant, what was going on in our world at that time. Wouldn't it be an interesting thing today, with the way things are going, to hear some of the conversations that might be developing over an ordnance plant that might be located here? We'll never see an ordnance plant like Kingsbury again. We don't fight wars with that kind of ammunition. It's all pretty technology fought today, so what we did there and what has happened in this area as a result of it is unique. And it surprises me. I'm at the museum. I hope some of you have been at the museum. People come in to do research, and it just surprises me how few people know anything about the ordnance plant. Well, what was that? I hear that frequently, but ask about Bell Gunness, and they all know. Everybody knows Bell. But, and I don't kind of like to spread the word about Bell, because I think we've had so many people in our county do such great things who have not been recognized. And I spent most of last year spreading the word about a lot of people from our county that I don't think most of our residents ever knew existed, but who have done great things for our county. For example, Dr. Carol Link. How many of you have heard of Dr. Link? Well, Dr. Link invented Coumadin.
Wow.
And he was a native of LaPorte, and I think that a high percentage of the people who are in existence today are thankful that he did invent Coumadin, because I am one of them. I know that I do take dosages of it every day, and I'm sure that maybe some of you do too. But anyhow, we should be thankful for a lot of things that have happened in the history of our county. I brought some things tonight that I have in my research area. A lot of it is basically the ordnance plant. I know that you have things here that I just copied just the front pages. This is an interesting little book that was put together. If you have not looked at it, you might want to take a look at it. You have it here at the library. Mm-hmm. People wrote their memoirs or things that they that came to mind about the living here and about the facility itself. And it's interesting to hear what other people's ideas are about where you've been and maybe lived here yourself and didn't get a chance to write. But I think you have another book now, don't you?
We've got quite a few. And what we're trying to do is just keep that kind of living history going. Some of the things I found interesting looking back over the years, I've been lucky enough to talk to people in town and get their memories of how the town built up, how it's changed. But the newspaper articles were pretty fascinating. We've got a really good collection from LaPorte Herald Argus. And one of the things that fascinated me, they were talking about the number of workers that the ordnance plant needed, up to 10,000 workers. Mm-hmm. And they said at that time the whole county only had about 16,000 residents. So that presented a huge problem. And that was, I think, part of the reason why they went ahead and developed here. Originally it was 775 acres of property for the town. But what really got me is I would have thought this would have gone great guns, the housing, the ordnance plant, and it sounded like there was a lot of dispute because the housing didn't go up and fill up as fast as what they anticipated. So I said that I found really interesting.
They took a number of the houses out because they weren't being inhabited. I was surprised at that too, and I was here when this happened.
Right,
I thought there'd be a great influx of people who come to live here.
same
But it
here.
was disappointing to those who had built the homes and so forth that they didn't fill up.
Right, right,
So, and then almost immediately when the plant closed, people left.
everybody left, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it wasn't just here, but Walkerton had the same situation. They also had a Kingsford Heights. I don't know what they called it.
New something. I can't remember, it's new. The first name was new, but I can't remember the second name.
right,
I don't remember what it was either. And then Stark County, Knox had quite a lot of people who came here to work.
right,
But
I know that's
a
where
lot of
Kingsford
them
was
just
from.
up and left and
Right.
went back home.
right. They talked
And-
about the wage
Well,
structure
I guess it would be
too.
understandable because there wasn't gonna be a job.
New York.
Right, right. I think, the way the newspaper article was talking, they were really looking for a influx because the wages were so comparable to the steel mill work, sometimes even higher than the steel mill work, higher paying. And they really put a lot of effort into the town to make sure there was green spaces or parks. We were talking earlier, an A&P grocery store. Walgreens was interested in being here in the town, and it just seems like they put so much effort into making sure the schools, nice living, good sized lots, a real community. So that, of course, when the ordnance plant left, that changed things, but it's still a nice centrally located area in LaPorte County for living. You know, and it's like the planning stages were good, it just didn't go off as the War Department was hoping it would go off, yeah.
Well, a lot of the conversation about why the people didn't come, and I suppose entertainment through a movie theater was the big deal, but that was one of the reasons that they said people didn't come because there was no movie theater.
They had
They never-
Roxy in the Fox.
Well, those were in town though.
In LaPorte, well, there was nothing here.
Right.
Right.
We had public transportation.
Yes,
But it was a long ways to LaPorte.
Well, no further than it is today.
I
That
hear
didn't
that,
change.
I hear that even today from people in LaPorte and Michigan City.
Right.
It's 13 miles from LaPorte to Michigan City.
right,
And I hear people say, oh, that's too far for me to go. Well, the way we get around the world today,
yeah, yeah.
it doesn't seem to me like 13 miles is
All
too
that
far
far,
to go for anything.
all that far.
But,
And from what I read about the ordnance plant too, and this might have had something to do with the community not filling up, they did have buses going to Gary, South Bend, LaPorte to
Yeah.
bring the
Well,
workers in
well,
too,
back
so
in the
you
day-
didn't necessarily have to relocate.
They had pool hall, they had softball teams.
Yes, yeah,
There was quite a few plants here at one time.
exactly,
Well,
exactly.
It's
We had
no
Bryant's and,
It's no different than it is today.
It's,
I know at the museum, we plan a lot of events and nobody comes. And then,
Right.
then you read in the paper through and hear people say, there's nothing to do in this county.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
and
true, that's
there's
true.
just- It seems to me like there's something for everyone, but you have to take advantage of it.
Right,
And
right.
I think that was part of the problem here, that they just didn't take advantage of what they had.
And Evelyn, how many families do you think are still living in town that moved here as part of the war effort and located themselves and
a lot
just
of them,
stayed?
well, most of them have passed. but
Right,
There's not that many left between the Dawsons, the Elkins, and
Well, there's a lot of things have happened.
there's quite a
since-
few, but not many.
right,
They're-
right.
They're offsprings.
But I think there, yeah, exactly, there was quite a few people that even after the ordnance plant left, stayed within the community. And what I've noticed about this community too, like you said, we've got things going on, but people don't come. Kingsford Heights really gets involved with the library and the things we have going on here. And I said, we're kind of unique being next to the school, but I think in this town, you still have that spirit of, you're in a community, you know? It's nice to see a town where the kids can walk and you know your neighbors, cause that's getting to be a few and far between. Yeah, exactly. Does anybody, I think I learned a little reading, but I know that the town then had to incorporate after
1945.
after the ordnance plant closed down.
Yeah, Mr. Hooks did that.
Okay,
And lawn. Here Jim is.
Hi, Mr. Lipscomb?
Yes.
Can I give you a seat right up there, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, you was gonna sneak in, what?
Yeah.
I couldn't find a parking place.
And if I could introduce Jim Lipscomb, longtime resident of Kingsford Heights, and very knowledgeable, and I have enjoyed so much talking to you on the phone, so we'll just keep talking. Yeah, we were just talking a little bit about the ordinance plan and the creation of Kingsford Heights, you know, as housing in a town for the people that were working there, and how it's evolved over the years. So anything you'd like to add is much appreciated.
Well, I arrived here in 1943. Evelyn and her family were already here,
Yeah, we came in
so
42,
she lived out this
2 years old.
And we came from a small coal field outside of Lipscomb, Kentucky. In Tennessee, I was from. Excuse me.
Can I get you a couple more?
And my dad was a coal miner, and everybody lived in the town, in the little town was too. Everybody had the same amount of nothing. Everybody was just living. And I don't ever remember anybody complaining about where they lived. Everybody was satisfied. Just living and work. Boys wanted to dance or roll up to help their dad, and girls wanted to go up and help their mothers. So my dad was sick, and my sister and her husband, and some more people that came there earlier, and I think that's the second time. It's called the Moving in Indiana. Anyway, they came and I came with them in 1943, moved down on Hadley Road. And that time, it was kind of sparsely settled, but people were coming in all the time. Town wasn't completely different. We thought they were streets and houses for the skirts on. I worked with them. Big as I am now, I was just young. And I was glad to make money since an hour right then. So I worked in an area down here, what we call, Jamaica. We're still putting up houses down there. I'll never forget the first paycheck I did. $48.23. More money than I'd ever seen on TV. There wasn't no TVs at that time. But the place was just thronged with people. People come in and want to come in, get settled, and just everybody was after the same kind of work. And so we lived there on Hadley Road with my brother-in-law and sister for about 6 months, and we went into our own house down a little further down the street. It's 235, and other people were still just coming in. It was right in the middle of the war. They didn't know that whether they were going to have enough kids to have 2 schools, but they had prepared for it. And there was a water tower out there just above where Dennis lives on that hill there. That's where the school was going to be. And but they found out before we knew about it that they weren't going to need another school because they had the bomb going and they didn't want to leave, but they were making it KOP. So we were transported to the port, high school kids were, and the buses came right from the ordnance plant, Army buses and everything, to the port school. I had 1 year left, and scared to death. 15 years old, only black kid in the room and bouncing with a white girl, you know. But it worked out fine. Everybody was nice to me. I had 1 year left. Teaching was good. And it was just like utopia here in this town. Running water and inside toilets. And no hills and rocks and gravel roads where you could walk. And everybody walked in those days, because very few people had cars, and they did. They had to share them because the government made sure that you share them to get to and from work only. And if you didn't, you didn't get gas, you didn't get tires. And everybody had a pocket full of ration books, sugar, shoes, clothes, tires, automobiles, coffee, everything that you needed, canned goods, meat. And, I was smoking, but I wasn't supposed to. Cigarettes for 20 cents a pack.
How many residents were there in Kingsford Heights by the time you were going to high school?
I was think closer to 5,000 total,
Okay,
yeah. They had enough units,
right,
nearly 5,000 units, which included the complex and the single units. And there were very few single units, like where Miss Dorset lived. That's considered a single unit. They were 3 bedrooms, and the rest of them were mostly 3 and 4 room, 2 and 3 bedroom
Right.
units.
right.
You didn't pay no lights, no water, no gas. All you did is brought your clothing and your bed clothes and stuff and moved in.
From what I was reading out of the newspaper articles, that the units were furnished, your furniture
Yes.
was there.
Yes.
Yeah,
All oak.
Yeah, exactly, beautifully done. Some of the pictures are still
Yeah.
there, and some of the residents had commented how much they liked it. And you talked about having a ride to school, that they were even picking up younger children to get them to school
Yeah.
because shortage of cars, and again, like you said, we don't drive like we did. I couldn't even imagine somebody coming to my house, you know, I've lived in the country, so, to get my children for school.
Well,
But
the
they talk
government
about what a
is responsible
wonderful-
for that. That's why the KOP buses came to us, because the place was built primarily for war workers. And
Exactly,
they were responsible for transporting kids to and from school.
and the education and to
Yeah.
make sure, yeah,
It, I don't know if I could even imagine a place being like it was.
right, right,
Everything was practically free.
yeah,
I worked with the gas people, put me in gas tanks and things like that. I just wanted to work.
right,
I just wanted my own money
Right.
and everything, to get to school. Couldn't wait to get out of school, go to work at 16 years old.
so,
Had gypsum in South Bend and made roofing material.
right,
A pair of leather gloves lasted you 2 days. A pair of leather bottom shoes lasted you 2 weeks.
right, before you wore through them, exactly, exactly,
And I was just proud of it.
exactly, exactly,
And so, from there, we still live in Kingsford Heights, you know, the war was over. People left like they came, in droves. And, some went back to their old home places, others went to places like Detroit, South Bend, Gary, where it was work.
exactly,
And the houses were dismantled, some mostly and sold to cities where they were having housing shortages. So I helped with that too. We had old warehouses full of mattresses, refrigerators, stoves, the whole works, you know.
right,
And I watched the town go down and up, and down and up. And the turning point was when they finally incorporated. And the biggest turning point was when the schoolhouse burned down. And Miss Dawson's husband, Forrest, and Elkins were the top of the urban renewal committee came in. We got curbs in areas where they needed curbs. It was adjacent to the school. It was a radius big enough where they would put curbs. And so, the town started putting in, tree lawns and planting trees.
right,
And after the school was rebuilt, it made a difference too, you know.
right. Was it a smooth transition, after the war, when this
Yes, in a way.
wasn't, owned by the War Department anymore, cause that would have been the original owner of the town,
The
correct?
government, sold the town to the people that were living in houses. In other words, they were the sole renters.
Right,
with me, like myself, I was staying with my family, so I was eligible to have a house. But the
Right.
ones that had, I think it was 300 of them, they sold
Right.
it to them.
Right,
I don't know for how much.
$800.
$800, yeah,
Yeah, they formed a municipal board that ran
okay,
the town. And had a representative for each area,
right,
which later became wards. And there was some conflict. It always is,
Sure.
because there were so many different people from so many different places. And,
Right.
some of them were completely green into what was going on. And
Right.
the ones that were organizing the town were green at it too.
right, right.
So-
That's quite a challenge, I can't even imagine moving and relocating my life and my family.
Well, you had lawyers and learned people, and we had a crooked too.
Always,
Have no
yeah.
experience at all.
Right.
And taking advantage of it.
Exactly, well, and if I was somebody at that time and age and had moved my family and relocated, and then all of a sudden, the town I think I'm in is no longer the
Yes.
town I'm in, that would be a very scary, you know,
And there was a lot of snatching and grabbing at real nice areas, you know, but
Right.
people that had good money.
Right.
But I didn't have no money, all I had was a pack of cigarettes and a quarter to go to work with. But, you just felt blessed with being
oh, yeah,
where you were.
exactly,
Especially myself, I still got memories of where I grew up.
wonderful
and they're
memories,
memories
yeah,
now.
yeah,
But at that time, you looked at them kind of sad, you know, but some of the happiest times of my life were there.
oh, yeah,
See, because everybody was even. You know, I played, fought, and had fun with young white kids that grew up. We fished together. We went to each other's houses and ate. We cut trees together. We gathered each other's hogs and things together.
right,
It was just a different place. And coming to Kingsford Heights,
and to have a sense of community like
it was
that,
utopia,
yes,
completely.
yeah,
No more
Exactly.
going barefooted after school. Stumping your toes, hanging up
yeah.
on nails and stepping on briars, picking blackberries. And
Yeah.
But all of that is happy now.
Exactly.
See, and Kingsford Heights is where I chose to be until I got a place.
Still a beautiful community, it truly is.
It just has such memories for me, for people that are either passed away or moved away.
Right,
And I have been a person all my life that I try to treat people better than I expect to be treated. So I think if you all you do is behave that well, we can get along better.
oh, yeah,
And everybody that came here, mostly were from small communities, and they were looking for something that was practically the same, so we ended up with a big, small community atmosphere.
yeah, yeah.
And we got along good.
Yeah, I think you
It's,
still
yeah.
do. I had read that when Kingsford Heights was originally created, we were talking about this a little, there was 775 acres that the War Department owned, which is a huge area. Do you know how much is incorporated into the town right now, what the acreage is, or did they lose a lot?
Rosalie probably.
Yeah, Rosalie, how many acres is Kingsford Heights now? I had read somewhere when the War Department created the community, they had a total of 775 acres.
I'll check.
Sure, and I said that was one question I wondered, because it's almost like trying to dismantle a whole town and then recreate the town. I thought that was fascinating, that the community members could come together and.
You phoning a friend?
Yeah.
I know, if you go out the back road, that big farm field out there, that used to be part of the Heights.
Okay,
Cause they
okay.
had to unincorporate it to,
Right, right, I imagine there's been a lot of work done over the years to keep the
I've got a
property,
little story. When we moved out here, it was after the war,
Uh-huh.
1948.
right.
Lived out on the corner, had my little boy, and every time I'd walk up to the drugstore, Lon's drugstore, I'd always go the same way, because I was afraid I'd get lost. Because I looked alike, you know, and I
I
always
know.
went the same way, and that seems impossible now.
I know, I know,
My dad was the same way, you know, all the houses looked the same,
yeah,
except the trim, blue trim and dark trim. And every time you leave home, come back, and somebody say, go find daddy, said the old breeze. And you could get in a car, and you still can't, people that never been.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Just go round and around.
Yeah, yeah, it
There's
took
still
me-
people today that do that.
Yeah, I'll put my hands up, I've been here for a couple of years and I'm getting better and I just,
It was
it's
said-
really a pretty simple layout if you just look at it for a minute, yeah. But I
It was
said, it took
said
me a
that,
couple passes.
President Roosevelt's wife named the streets.
Right.
Yes, that's
That's
what
what
we
No
we
said.
avenues and no streets here in this town.
Right.
All roads, courts,
Right,
boulevards.
At one time, there was only one entrance in and one out.
yes,
No,
yeah,
now they've got little side roads going.
right. And your entrance is still beautiful, I mean, it truly is, I like the layout of the town, I like the feel of the community. We were talking earlier too, it's a nice town in that we're kinda contained, you know, I'm from Westville. There's a highway down the middle of every town I've lived in, or
It's beautiful.
surrounded, yeah.
It's beautiful here in the
It's-
spring. when
It
the
is, it's a walking
grass is
town, I love
green,
that the
flowers
children
and
are safe
And
and,
everything, you know, and at that one time when you first moved in, anything you needed to beautify your house was here for you.
right,
Lawnmowers, hose, all kinds of tools that you need,
Needed.
even grass seed.
right,
And
right.
the lower end of the town is why it has such much better grass than the upper end, because it was all sand,
Ah.
and all the seeds that you planted, they were washed down to the.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, I've only been in this area like 10 years now, but I spent on military post time, and my recollection of the town was that it was like built for some military people too that lived here that worked at the
They lived out on the, right off of Six.
that was like the officers area over in
Over
there.
Six, yeah.
Okay, that like
Kingsbury Circle.
Yeah,
they had like the buildings here,
That
like
was
for the
inside
people
of
that lived
the
here.
AOP area.
Yes,
The administrative stuff that
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
That ran the plant, and the people that ran the heights, this was the center of it here. It was the boss of Maple Terrace and, thing in Knox. It was similar to Heights. But the main guy was here, right where the Legion is now.
ah,
Yeah, in that area, that back area there behind the town hall.
uh-huh.
And, so, it was just,
What
like I
was,
said, people.
what was housed down in the area where the post office is now?
Walgreens,
Yeah, that was most
Yeah,
of
there
it.
was a
That
Walgreens, yeah.
That's a business district.
Yeah.
the Walgreens there, and then the others were
Did you
people
find
who
it?
ran
'Cause I
them
did.
different things.
Right.
They had a USO center.
94
Oh.
square
about
miles or
midway
600
through
acres.
where you go,
601.6.
Yep, that's what I
Right.
found.
Games and music,
Port County Public Library,
Stuff, and
Kingsford
we
Heights,
had,
Francis Searle.
different things where you could do different times of the week. And they
Exactly.
had people that took care of everything.
Exactly.
We had a softball team that was sponsored by the USO, and we had
That would be someone at our local,
I think
the
it
main
was
branch.
something that they had, you know.
Right,
And they had people that were paid normal
Thank
people,
you.
they had a volunteer fire department, I was
Right.
on that.
right.
Like you got drowned in with Dave. Well, a guy begging me into it, we were on top of the buildings there. The guy lived down here,
Yes, ma'am.
right where the bridge. is, like in that
94
area there,
square
and it's
miles
cool.
or 601.6 acres.
So
We
you
was on
really
top of
never
the
lost
house,
that much
and
size,
it was on the
seven
ground.
hundred and seventy-five to 601.
No, and that was probably the two farms that disannexed because they had no utility service.
Yeah,
They dusted that, we can't get to them. And we got some wet, we had to go home and change clothes. But that was the kind of thing that I was volunteer with the fire department for a long time. And, then when it changed up, it got bigger, they started getting a little more organized. I just kind of backed off those, you know, I was doing other things. And the main thing, I don't want to get into all the things that I could tell you, but the main thing that changed me to love this town was 11, 12 years I spent playing, having kid baseball. And, I had the only integrated team in both leagues, the Pony League, and what we had, the 10, 14, and me and Hammond Song, Chuck Baker. Oh, I just get into so much sports. And it was unreal. kids just coming wanting to play, some didn't have no gloves, some didn't have no shoes. So we finally got sponsors to help us out, you know, and we were the scourge of the county people. Nobody wanted to
Nobody
see.
wants to play ball now.
Now, there's
Now
none
I
here,
have a team.
none here.
Sad.
The first year I was in it, I lost one game. Next year I went undefeated. The next year I lost two. And then the Cobley team that I had, which was 15 and 16, I won a title each even year, 62, 64, and 66. And it was fun, I'll tell you. I see grown kids now, grown men, and got kids that recognize me and ask me if I'm still coaching. Man, I'm almost 90 years old. I said, I can't eat more anymore. I'm a little coach. But that was some of the joyous times that we had here. There were times that we would have 200-300 people out here watching us play baseball.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, you had some beautiful park spaces when the town was laid out.
We were the only team in the league that had lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful park spaces.
And some of the best people that I ever knew, they're gone now. They were real active in the community, had the kids at heart, and they recognized just community and people.
Exactly,
This is a
exactly.
town of people. No industry, no business, just people.
People, yeah.
And that's what I told somebody, some friends we were talking, I said, well, if it wasn't illegal, I'd let them bury me in my backyard. My garden.
Put in your garden, Jim.
There you go.
30 by 60. Every inch of it is done by me.
Nice, nice, that's
But
wonderful.
the good Lord is good enough to give me a good garden every year, and I give
Wonderful.
everything away that I can give.
That is wonderful.
And I can't wait from one year to the next. I don't know if I draft it and when from now on, not be able to do it, but it's one thing that I really enjoy. Next to Kingsford Heights and my family, my friends, one of which is sitting right here. I don't know what I would do other than what I'm doing here in Kingsford Heights. And the people that are listening to me tonight, they can be for sure that I wouldn't lie about nothing that I know about. Just Lord.
Exactly.
That's why we love it.
I'm just curious if anyone has ever seen any documentation in regards to Eleanor Roosevelt's involvement to the town.
I don't know that I have anything here. I'm sure if we did a little research though, we would be able to find something. You said that was news back to me when the president's wife named the
Well, they
street.
say that she didn't do it, but my sister, she's a history buff,
Yeah,
and she seemed to think that Eleanor did.
I've heard that since I was.
Name all
little
the-
kid.
Since I have heard that
Exactly.
forever.
Ever since we grew up here, we were always told that she named the streets.
Right,
Matter
there's
of
so
fact,
much
that she
material
ran,
available
and she
on
ran
her,
the
too.
country too, they say. so.
yes.
Well, I know that the street proposal was submitted by
Add a little
Amy
something to
Taylor.
that.
Okay.
There's been a lot of research done to try and find out if, in fact, Mrs. Roosevelt did name the street, or if she did call it Victory City. And in all the research that's been done, no one has been able to document it.
It was never called Victory City until they started having the festival with the Jewish holiday. That's when they got the name. But then, up to the end, it was just Kingsford Heights.
Exactly.
And
I have,
officially now.
Right.
the Heights had just gotten started and the post office was named Kingsford Heights.
You know, even if it's not. Or
At one
somebody could have
time, we
heard
were
that
the
and it
third
wasn't.
biggest town in the county.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michigan City, reporting house, we were even bigger than Westfield,
oh, yeah, I'm
which had
sure.
grown until they wouldn't establish the Solomon
Right,
out there, you know.
right.
But people, people came and went, families left, and a lot of the youngsters came back, some of them didn't. And you never knew exactly how many people were here, see?
Right.
After the war was over in 1945, in May, a lot of people left. And then in August, out the door today and 3 houses would be empty tomorrow.
Right.
See, because they were gone and they knew where they were gonna go, you know. Like I said, a lot of them went back home, but others went to where they could get jobs in Detroit. It's just teeming.
Yes, yeah.
Even I went up there and worked manually for a couple of weeks. I've worked in 60 years, I've had 3 jobs. And I wanted more, but I couldn't do it.
The young people today won't be able to say that,
No,
because
no.
they change jobs every month, I think, some of them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I've noticed that trend too, I don't know if it's such a
Well, I
good thing
think, yeah, there was a lot of loyalty between employers and employees
Yeah.
Yeah,
during those days, where today there's not that camaraderie at all.
exactly,
They're
exactly.
just in it for what they can get, and they're on, out into the world now.
Right.
Most kids, when they graduated from school here, they came back here in those days. But now, you go to Europe or somewhere,
Well, there's nothing here for them.
that's
Right.
it.
That's, that's why we're losing them, because
Right.
there's no jobs.
Chalmers, American Home Foods,
Oh,
all of them.
Yeah, well, we have Starbucks.
I closed down 3
And
places.
Dunkin' Donuts.
It's your fault then.
I did close 3 places. And the last one I
He went
quit, I
from
just
picking
said,
apples down in
I
Illinois
retired.
to Alice Chalmers, and that's the only job he ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, there's a lot of people that never worked ever before, or since after they came here, you know.
Exactly, exactly. Any other questions from anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering if anyone knows the whereabouts exactly where the dinosaur bones were found, or where they're currently at now.
We haven't, the dinosaur bones, the mastodon bones.
Yeah,
I
I know it was
think I
on-
know where they were
it
found.
was on the north end, I know that, according to the
Yeah.
article.
It seems to me like it was south of the sewage plant on
But-
that county road there.
Yeah, it
Exactly.
was.
Before you leave, I do have
Farmer's
a
got
newspaper article.
I have them.
Do you have
I
it?
have
Yeah.
4,
I'll have to go take a look and see, cause I had read that they had found, I think it was mastodon bones.
correct.
Yeah, I said in Kingsford Heights, and I thought that was kind of a neat little piece of history, that's not something
But they're
new.
just nowhere to be found.
I don't know what
I don't
they,
know.
yeah, I don't,
We've
when I
tried
read it, I don't
several
remember
different museums
saying,
and nothing.
Purdue's the one that did it.
okay, so they might be, I would hope Purdue would have kept those, or,
This was actually in
At that time, it would
1942.
have been out of
yes,
Lafayette.
yeah.
I know Purdue handled the one most recently
Right.
on the outskirts.
Yes, yeah,
But
there,
in
I've got
1942,
two,
Purdue didn't.
yeah, I'll take a look and see if I can find out, or if the newspaper article had any leads as to,
I
you
think
know,
it was the
once they were
museum in
exhumed.
Chicago that was called out originally,
probably could have been.
but they did not take them.
There were people driving from Chicago to KLP every day,
Oh, yeah,
yeah, and Gary and, Marshall County,
yeah,
yeah, every day. And, they were supplied with, like I say, the rationale of gas and stuff, but you had to have a full load of people. you know,
to get that, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, to get that.
and the demise of Alice Chalmers, Studebaker, Coleman Standard from Michigan City,
Yes.
Hendricks, all of them, when they left, they just took a lot with them.
Yes,
And,
yeah,
the people had nowhere to go, and the places where they could have gone, they were already overstaffed and everything.
exactly,
And the country was in the process of evolving
yes,
from manual work to
to
computerized.
technology, and I still think we're in the midst of that to a certain degree, you know, it's
I was
another
at Studebaker
revolution.
10 years, and I was at Arsenal
Mhm.
27, and at Arrow Meadows 23, and at Tillendine 10,
Exactly.
and besides raising 5 kids.
Well, some of the houses are spread around the county.
Yeah,
I have 3 of them very close to my house.
and some of the flat tops are down just adjacent to the entrance to Fox Park there.
Oh,
Just
Oh,
before you get
yes.
to that
Oh,
school,
yes.
there's 2 or 3 flat tops, and they came to replenish the place after they moved so many away, and a lot of people had no place to go, so they got the flat tops in here, see? And, so that's
Well,
where.
I have a neighbor, I guess you'd call her a neighbor, the neighbors are pretty far away from me sometimes. But, they purchased 3 of the houses and restored them, if you wanna call, or did a lot of work on them, and they're rentals.
Yeah, yeah. How many homes were moved out of this area that were originally?
A lot of them, because
A lot
at
of
one
them?
time there were a lot of houses, a lot went to South Bend,
Okay,
a lot went to Gary,
Michigan City.
and Michigan City.
South,
Yeah.
LaPorte, some, see, there was a projects there too,
yes,
and they were running out. I remember projects in Knox,
right,
and they ran out. Then there were some people that just, some towns that just bought, a lot of them went to Iowa,
right,
you know, and areas where that, they just needed new housing
Housing.
because people were coming back from
Yeah, I
north.
just,
right.
I just received from Walkerton, notice, I don't know whether, oh, here it is right here. These were some of the houses that they were going to dismantle at that
Yeah.
particular time.
I said, didn't they go to a West York area of Walkerton and now,
Yes, yes.
and now those have been taken down and Walkerton had a, housing project come in and upgrade the houses there.
They just took them all out too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got new housing development in there.
Have any of the original modulars in Kingsford Heights or these other areas been saved as for historical significance?
Well, I think the only historical one would be Portland's father's house over here on,
Okay,
But you,
he's got the original windows, everything
right,
is
right,
the way it was when we first came here.
right, right. I didn't know if the
Mr.
state
Miller.
put any significance on,
Miller.
Yeah,
you know, on the homes or not, because we've got quite a few historical homes around here. And I know where I grew up at Sears Kit Homes, where you'd order your whole home from Sears were really popular. Chesterton area has quite a few of those. You know, we think we're so modern now.
yeah.
But they
were
literally
the
deliver
best
everything.
material, the 3/4 plywood, oak flooring, oak, even oak and mirror,
Yes,
chairs and tables and everything.
ready to
Number one,
go,
oak
right.
flooring was oak.
And when you bought the homes after, the town was incorporated, when furniture and everything went right with it,
Yeah,
or?
yeah, everything came with the
think-
house
yeah.
of capitalist, they
I
got rid
think,
of it.
I know, I think that is just the neatest,
The
yeah,
best water in this whole state, I think,
exactly,
until they started adding stuff because of what they found in Houston. And they started trying to add it here. Still has the good taste, because I
Right.
have friends that live here. Every time he'd come to visit me, he'd bring about 10 jugs to get
right, right,
Oh, you get
right,
tired of drinking out of Lake Michigan, you know?
right,
Well, we still score real high in the, drinking water contests at state.
mhm,
Yeah. I tell you, it tastes good. When we first came here, we didn't have to use ice in the
Right.
water, that's the truth.
yeah,
And I hadn't had nothing like that since bending down on my stomach in the mountains. Drinking all I wanted.
exactly,
I just love it. But
exactly,
just, looking at what's here now, and at times driving around and seeing so-and-so live here, this person live there, and it brings back a lot of good memories, you know.
right. Were most of the businesses that were downtown in the little area
Yeah.
created after you guys incorporated? Did
No,
they
it
come
was
in or
here
were-
before.
It was-
Lawns
okay.
had the post office,
Okay,
Yeah, everything was there.
he had everything, laundromat,
right,
Yeah.
right,
and I think Brian's might have come after him.
Somebody, one or two people
Had a dry
had turned over
cleaners.
hardware.
right.
They said out here they had more churches than they had, more taverns than they had churches, and they had more
Yeah.
churches than anything else.
Yeah.
And no filling stations, no light, just
Well,
stop
Engel
signs.
had a filling station.
Engel had a filling
Yeah.
station.
Yeah, but he came later.
Is that the place on the corner there that's got this?
Yeah.
But
Used to be a
Lon's
filling
owned it
station.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, Lon's owned
you
it
see,
before
that
Harry.
came
Yeah.
way after the war was over.
Well, Harry
Okay.
rented it from Lon's.
Yeah, that's,
right,
Way after the war. So the only business we've ever had is the one here, like industry down the little plant down here. I don't even know till now.
we got a new store now.
yeah, yeah, it's nice to see a grocery store, it really is nice to have a grocery store in town.
At one time, we had 4 taverns and a liquor store and seven
Yeah.
churches.
When did Bryant's raincoat factory come?
Oh, it had to be over in the 60s.
Yeah, 'cause when I came here, in
Had
'66,
to be
and
in
it
the
was here.
60s.
Yeah.
What,
The-
the slaughterhouse?
No,
Bryant's.
Bryant's.
Bryant's,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
cause
that was
they
way-
were still
who
here when
owned
I
the-
came here.
Frost, the root beer stand.
Didn't Lions own that too? I think they
I didn't
owned
know if
that.
Ron owned that.
No, they didn't have
Was
it
that
originally, they didn't have it originally.
He didn't own the A&W?
No, they didn't have it. Don Vance had one down here where the filling station is on the highway.
Right.
But the one here in the Heights, I can't think who it on, but Lions did have it at the time. And
Right, it was in Lon's area
area.
that they didn't own.
Yeah, they had the land at one time,
James
but they
Paul
didn't have
Brock.
it.
James Paul Brock married the daughter of the owners. But I
Oh.
don't remember her maiden name.
Who was that?
James Paul Brock, I thought he
Oh.
married the daughter of the owners of
Yeah,
the.
it was Al and Nell Leeds owned the root beer stand.
Okay.
When they closed it all up, I got a couple of mugs from there.
Any other questions? Any other great memories
I got a
of,
question.
oh, yes, sir.
The flat tops, what area of the town were they in?
Oh, we were down
They
in
were on
Hadley.
Jefferson,
Hadley.
Hadley, and Ivanhoe.
And Ivanhoe. There's one
And
still
some of them
down.
were moved to other areas in the town, but that's where they originally were. From Jefferson, right there from this corner, down to about halfway to the curve, and then on Ivanhoe, there were some that started in that area just below where the houses were left over. See, when the government moved them out, they moved all the people close together and left blank spaces. So
Oh,
the low end of Hadley, that's where a lot of the flat tops were from, in the 200s, clear down to where we call Bayard Lane. And
Yeah,
then there
'cause they
was some
still
more
got sidewalks
houses,
down there.
more houses came in just
Right.
before that,
Mhm.
that were, kind of little projects that my daughter lives in one. Those are started in an area down there from where the Crittendens are, and on down that area there was a lot of same kind of houses, you know.
right.
There's still one on the on the road where the H used to live.
Yeah,
Still
he
there.
moved
Yeah.
his.
Uh-huh.
He remodeled his,
Right.
yeah.
Now, are a lot of the duplexes in town original to Kingsford Heights yet, or?
If they're duplexes, they were the original
Original,
houses.
yeah, somebody had
Because they were
told me
all
that,
the
yeah.
houses were
A lot of the
connected.
duplexes
Yes.
were split apart
Yeah,
Yes.
and
afterwards.
made,
Right,
and made
into
single
single
houses.
family,
Mine was
yeah.
after.
Was it?
All the houses were duplexes until
Amazing,
after
yeah.
the war and people.
And moved
Split 'em off.
Split
Right.
them.
Yeah, and some of them put basements in.
Right.
Right.
They put basements in.
Right,
And made another, what you call dormer. Yeah.
exactly.
Now, I have a question. Was Maple Terrace created just like Kingsford Heights, or were those homes brought from Kingsford Heights to Maple Terrace?
No, they were all, came at the same time.
They all came at the same time?
Kingsford Heights, was the main administrative part was here in Kingsford Heights. Maple Terrace and the Knox, they were all created at the same time. But
Okay, 'cause-
nothing left from here, went to Maple Terrace until later on, when the people left, and then Maple Terrace needed some more houses, so they took some over there.
Okay.
Now,
Well,
is
when my
Maple
parents
Terrace-
moved from southern Indiana, we stayed in one of the duplexes. We rented half of a duplex. That was in the mid-50s.
Where is Maple Terrace located?
18th Street.
Oh,
yeah.
that area.
Iron 18.
Okay,
Just behind 10th Street, actually
Okay.
behind the high school, south of it.
And most of the people in Maple Terrace have built garages now.
right.
What, I don't know what the street is, but it's over there on the corner. You can see where the old streets are, there's no houses in there, it's behind
Yeah.
the Catholic church and that, what was that area?
Just
Can I show you? I have a map.
They both see that a lot of the houses were going to be built.
Because they had the
Stopped building.
streets in,
Yeah, had the streets in.
but no houses ever got built
Houses
there.
every house. See, down there, what we call Jamaica Town, you know why we call it that, they brought some Jamaicans in here. The government did, and they lived in one area down there, from the sewage pulled into the area back west. And their houses were much better than the ones up in this area, see. And so there's a lot of streets down there that never were houses were ever built, yeah.
They still got the fire hydrants out there too.
Yeah.
We called them back 30 years ago, going hunting back there, and they still have the old fire hydrants, infrastructure back there.
Right.
That are still good. I still
Yeah.
got some of the sidewalk when they tore them up. And I pieced them together, made my walkway out of it, and they just like me, yeah.
Got one more question. Over here where Deerfield Estates is, somebody said that was like a housing area in there too.
Was gonna be.
It was going to
Yeah, no
be,
houses.
because there was a building in there, you know.
It was a guy came in here, I can't think of his name, but he was gonna do big things, you know, and, found out he was a crook too. He was going to create a housing, and I can't think of what his name was, but he did have lots of know-how. And he stayed into it with the, building committee here in Kingsford Heights, because he knew the rules and the people that were running our thing. They weren't lawyers, and they didn't know about, building codes and things like that, so. But he finally, ran out of room too. I can't think, he had some, some houses down here, south of, you know where that church is on I Street? Fieldstone Avenue in that area there. Had a lot of nice houses off in there, and I don't know what finally happened to them. But there were a lot of people that were coming out here because of the land and the sewage and the water already being in.
In here, yeah.
And they could sell a lot of land at a double price because of that, and they took advantage of it, see. But they just didn't last because they ran an area where most people were as good as they were gonna be financially, and others that got better, they had moved away. So they failed.
Question? When they plotted this area off then originally for the water and the sewer mains, did they plot that area south of, I don't know, that road that goes all the way through us, like for the south side of the addition? Was that water and sewer plotted off at the same time? Because evidently, there's no older homes down in that neck of the woods,
Right.
like there is up in this part.
I've got
And that's the
some-
part that we live in, and like the houses were built in 70 to 75 time span, something like that.
Where do you live?
It might have been, I don't know. I was-
Dartmouth.
all the water
Right
and
down from
sewage
you.
and-
We're the last house on Dartmouth.
Yeah, we're sixteen.
Okay, well, as soon as you turned around, you were.
We'll have to look at
Yeah, our utilities were already
ordinance
in.
plan.
Even the back
And I'm
40 had
wondering if I should
utilities.
have Something with the
Yeah.
old town plans, the
Yeah, because
layout.
there's no older homes down in there that
Right.
matches the area, the homes up in this neck
Neck of
of
the
the woods.
woods, right.
Yeah, all the utilities and all the sewer was, even the back 40, way back there, it's got sewers and all
Right.
Wow.
in it.
Behind the apartments.
Yep.
And that's just all owned by individual property owners now, or is it owned by the town?
It's, well, mostly it's owned by individual property owners,
Yeah,
but I have a feeling it'll soon be owned by the county.
yeah.
Parkland's owns a lot of that stuff south.
Well, that's South 40 you're talking about, that must be that new addition, well,
Oh, yeah, the new, yeah.
not,
Are you
you know,
talking,
it's not new now, but
Right.
it would have been back then.
He's talking
like
over there
you're-
down from Dennis's, right?
Oh, that's Beverly's,
No, what's this road that runs all the way through?
Meadowbrook.
Wayland?
Creek.
Talking about Wayland Road?
Yeah, Wayland Road, south of Wayland Road, that area.
Down in the 600 block of
Yeah,
Dartmoor, First
yeah.
Way, all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was that area plotted out at the same time?
Yes.
This
Yeah.
area was.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah, I
map
think everything
up there
was.
of the whole Kingsford Heights,
Oh,
how
okay.
we plotted out.
But evidently that area wasn't built on at the same time this area was
No,
built
it
on.
was later, cause after I
That was
came
like
here,
in
my
Right.
brother used to work, for what it was, the
76.
Cala Construction, built all
Yeah,
those.
Canada
Way.
Construction
Yeah.
built all those.
And we were talking about the acreage earlier, it's 775 acres, and Rosalie was telling right now.
601
now.
Yeah, so there really wasn't
How,
that much.
how many acres now?
601, but
There
mostly
really
what's
wasn't that much.
disannexed
Yeah.
is,
My house was the only one on that street.
the farmland off of the boulevard,
Right,
and the farmland across from Wilma Marshes.
right.
And that's where we lost most of
Most of
the
the
acreage
land.
at. Wallens, part of it was a Wallen family, and part of it might have been Marshes and or a combination of Marshes and Dobbies.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Marshes.
The original plans only called for a little over 3,000, okay? According to the hearing that took place, there was 2,974 units in Kingsford Heights.
Wow.
So the last 200 were canceled. So I'm just curious what areas were not developed, because that only leaves 200 homes that were not originally
Developed.
developed.
South of Wayland, I'm pretty sure.
That has to be that grown up area back there by the sewage plant.
Yeah.
South of Wayland.
I think Parkman's has bought a
Isn't
lot
that
of
where the Jamaicans lived?
Huh?
Isn't that where the Jamaicans lived?
No, they lived down on Bear, we call it Bear Art Lane, south of Hatley. South of Hatley.
And then how many homes were left in the town proper when it, 300, when it, that many went out of here then? Amazing, yeah.
300 left that won
The town, yeah, and you were saying there was close to 3,000, so that's a lot of, from between 200 that didn't get developed and that many new
So there's
houses.
2,500 homes that got moved out?
Sounds like at least,
Yeah, the burgundy one.
See, this area's down on my street there, that maybe 10, 12, 15, 20 lots that were houses were on. See, all that area on Jefferson from where the Evans live down to where Jerry lives. There's no houses on one side, that's all school ground. And then plenty of these areas where you see just nothing but blank space for
Right.
houses, yeah.
the houses were there and then, yeah, then they moved.
And some of those were moved first because there were no people in them.
Right,
See,
Right.
But then they started moving the people closer together, so when they come in and started moving,
right,
they would move a whole section at one time rather than picking them out.
right. I was just surprised in reading the articles that, when this was developed and like you were saying, it was all here. There was everything you could, when you said it was heaven on earth, I can imagine, here's your home, here's your park, we'll get you to school, we'll get you to work, and then how much trouble they had filling these units. That they just, the people weren't coming to stay here, which it's always a struggle when you uproot your family for a job or move. But, I mean, today I have my hand up in the air going, that sounds really good, you know? I said, you just don't find that anymore, and I said, it was amazing to me, the controversy and why it didn't take off. I could see why the
Well,
War
if you look at
Department
the time there
thought
too, because there was a lot of war production going on all over the
all
country.
over, yes.
And, you know, that was sucking up the manpower, whether it be
Exactly.
Rosie the Riveter or
Oh.
whoever it was,
Oh,
you
even
know.
to small little plants in town
And
Right.
they
that
were
weren't
looking
large,
they were
you
looking
know.
for excitement,
Yeah,
things to do, and we didn't have it here. So
Right.
they gravitated to Chicago,
well, that's,
Gary,
yeah,
and
right,
further west.
And I
right,
talked and went around with guys, they came from different areas here, like Memphis, different places. They were just going recruiting just like they would for the army,
Right.
looking for workers.
right.
And they'd get enough of them together, then they would ship them in, and the housing and
Exactly.
stuff was already here. And, that was it.
Yeah, my father's from the South, and he came up to work for American Bridge and Steel because there was just nothing.
Yeah.
So he ended up in that Hammond area, but out of 5 brothers, they all made one trip, saw, and went back home. So only one stuck out of that many, so it
Well, the
is
weather
hard
drove a lot of
to.
them back home, I can tell you.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. The couple of them tried Detroit and turned the
Yeah.
car around after that first winter and went back, you know, to the mountains.
Never winter.
Never again.
I'm from Crawford County, Illinois, and at one time there was 13 families here in the Heights from that county, but there's very few of them left now.
Right,
The Hands and, you know,
Right.
like,
A bunch of us, when my brother and them came here, they came from Joliet, came here because some factory moved in Kingsbury.
right,
There's a Challenger, they made storm doors and windows and screens.
yeah.
And they company moved here, and then that's how they come, and then they moved again, they stayed,
Yes,
you know.
yeah.
but we stayed.
It is hard to
But they
relocate a
can go
family and,
But
you
as
know,
far as
Went
I
back
know,
every weekend.
Evelyn and I are the oldest ones that have stayed here permanently. You know, there are other people, now that nephews that live in Michigan City that came when I came, but they never lived here.
right,
But Evelyn was already here, her family, my family, well, hers are gone, mine are gone.
She was
right.
just a baby.
Yeah. Well, there was a bunch of them, I can tell you the truth. Every spring, you could tell. I tell you, there was a bunch of kids out here, and they were all happy. I went to
Exactly.
California a couple of times to visit my brother, and things were a little slow. And I got a job while I was out there, and my kids were gonna have a fit when I
I
come
wanna
back.
go home.
Yeah,
Well, they, I said, well, they don't need to just breaking the family up to go to a job.
right.
The guy called me 2 or 3 times from out there to come back to work for $4 an hour, so you know how bad it was here.
Yeah, exactly,
So,
exactly.
but the kids just loved it, and that's why I stayed. and that's
Right.
why most of my children are still here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's amazing too. It's unusual these days to see a family that's still in an area, you know? I said, I'm lucky my kids all live and work in the same area, cause I don't know that I could make it if they left. I'd have to go.
For the first 4 or 5 years out here, nobody died. That's the truth.
Maybe I need to move here.
Well, I mean, once they start dying.
Exactly. You said that water was very good.
Some of these young people moved away. I'm not gonna mention any names, but.
I know, it can happen, it can happen, and it,
Still got property here.
I know,
backup.
but he's not in it.
He will be.
but we were such an industrial area though, I think, coming up into here, and like you said, there was so many jobs to be had at one time, that today you look at something like that, and again, you wouldn't recreate the ordinance plan, I'm sure, but to have that kind of job opportunity and housing opportunity, what a rare thing, you know?
Yeah, Marshall County, Fort County, and St. Joe County depended a lot on the industry.
Exactly,
That left, frankly, all at once.
exactly,
And,
Well, you know, with times being different, I can remember, everybody knew everybody. And we had what we call the Mason and Dixon line. I mean, you couldn't see it, but you knew it was there.
there,
But we never had any fights or anything, we visited. And when I went to Union Township, that's when I realized we were poor. I mean, seriously. I mean, we got there with all the farmers, you know, they're wearing Levi's, and we got our little Montgomery Wards and Sears
Yeah.
stuff. And you know, that peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they got meat. I mean, that's when I realized that
what a difference there was.
there was a difference.
Yeah,
And,
right.
yeah.
And don't you think your impression as a kid too, this was life and life was
Yeah.
good, yeah, sometimes looking back as you get older, you're going, well, we really didn't have that much, but I never
we didn't.
realized that
I
as a
wore a lot of
child.
Wheatie box tops in my shoe,
Yeah,
because it was 8 of us, 8 kids.
yeah,
And so we had to work it, we had to get stuff in shifts.
yep, yep,
I was telling my kids how we used to take our baths on Saturday nights, and she says, oh, you're lying. We got in the tub, a number 10 tub.
yeah, yeah,
Whether you need the bath or
Or
not.
not.
And my daughter, when she went to college, she wrote that and she got an A++.
yeah, it's
You
amazing.
know, and nowadays kids got everything and they don't appreciate it, they don't know anything about the history of this town, and they could care less.
Right, right,
You know, but there's a lot of history here.
Yes, there is.
Tremendous
I
amount.
remember Saturday night bad.
Yeah.
no,
I
that
remember
is
my
true.
parents coming out here for the auctions.
Oh, yeah, the auction.
The
Yeah.
auction barn.
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Gibson lived out here at the time.
Had an
Robin and,
auction?
was here.
Right.
And they would
Right
take
where
mom and
Ben's
dad to the auction.
what they tore down. Yeah. That used to be the auction.
See, I did not even know
Yeah,
that was
the end
there,
there.
This was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
Saturday nights, I always think, oh, we should.
First
go on
post
Saturday.
office was down on Letterbrook splits in the house. And it went from there over here to where it used to be Doug's
My
Tavern.
name or?
No, but the man
And
auction,
then into their Walgreens,
Gills.
right,
before they built this.
They had the auction?
right. And this might be a kind of odd question, but being that you have such a history to the ordinance plant, World War II, and exactly the Victory City moniker, does the government ever recognize these towns through the years?
Oh, they're too big business.
That was another,
Gone, did his bid,
Yeah.
on to something else.
that was another, that was another question I had.
They had houses down there, and I know the
There's
mother of the
nothing
guy
historical
that
here,
built them is here.
except the Legion, you know.
Well, but even why you're even here, you know, and what an amazing history. Most people might have just put their hands up in the air and said we're all moving, but the idea that as a community incorporated and kept going, that right there is a huge undertaking.
One of the main things about that part of
The comment you're making about the government recognizing, from the research that I remember my wife doing,
Uh-huh,
cities like Kingsford Heights that were created due to an ordinance plant during the war,
right,
there might be like 3 or 5 that are actually a still existing city in the United States operating.
right. Yeah, because that is no small feat. I mean, I cannot even
And
comprehend.
Kingsford Heights and KOP were one of the top 3, I do believe.
Yeah, I can't imagine just living here and then things change so suddenly, let alone the war years, and then the war's over, and then the town you knew, and the government's pulling out, and here's your choices, you know, like you said, to,
I think too, and not one of the other reasons, is that the presidential political changes too. See, one political in power doesn't want to recognize another politician's power, and so it just goes back and forth. So the government never really got into the point where they cared anything about it after they sold it to the people.
Well, they just declassified us within the last less than 10 years. It
Yeah,
might even
less
be
than
less
10
than
years.
5 years.
Yeah, you couldn't even get a map of it or anything back then.
Nope,
No streets and no highway signs showing where Kingsford Heights was or nothing.
they just declassified us.
All with the
I remember that one.
No, just in the last 10 years, we was declassified. It was still, the city was still classified,
We were still a war secret.
still a war secret.
They were still worried about the Nazis coming over.
Well, I used to run Highway 6 a lot, and I remember seeing a sign out there that said Kingsford Heights. This was back in like the late 70s, early 80s, and I never knew what was back in there. You know?
Yeah.
I just saw the sign out there on the boulevard there, it said Kingsford Heights.
All the way, it looks like,
I
looked
never
like a
knew what
rocket
it was.
Never knew there was
Yeah,
town
yeah.
back
But it
in
wasn't even
there.
on the map.
exactly.
No.
Nope.
You can watch the weather reports now. The only time I've ever seen Kingsford Heights notified on the map is when the big tornadoes and things come and it showed where it was.
Well, now
Kingsford
that's
Heights,
true,
South
whatever, yeah.
Report, you know, and they designated on it like that. I've often wondered why somebody here in this town wouldn't get, connected with the weather people in one of those networks.
Mhm.
And, I know you have to have somebody to do it.
Right.
There was one guy who used to do it in LaPorte. They had Cannon's, filling station down there.
Mhm.
But since then, there's so much changes in different, institutions and stuff.
Exactly.
I guess it ain't important, but it is.
It is, it truly is.
Yeah. So,
It
that's
truly
something
is.
to work on.
We have a weather station in Kingsford Heights now.
They do that?
It sure is, isn't it?
Are we looking at Rose Lake? Oh.
I actually used to be one of the amateur operators to report the siren for testing until they changed the system.
Did you
I've
really?
got the app on my
That's
phone. It's Kingsford Heights weather.
We actually make the Weather Channel once in a while if it's really bad.
Isn't it exciting though when you do and you hear your town name?
Yeah, it's usually after it's passed through. and
I
it's
know,
out
even
there.
if it's bad news though, yeah, we used to watch Chicago use it every once in a while, Westville would be on there.
Every now and then, Kingsford Heights be on Channel 7.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's good to,
You're gonna have a storm. I remember when they had the big snowstorm and Pam was driving a state truck where she was out on TV that time.
yeah, exactly. Always for the bad stuff. We'll have to visit on a good day when it's really beautiful.
That was another turning point in this town, was the 3 big snows. It kind of brought the people together, you know, because everybody wanted the same thing. I remember getting out in the street with our neighbors and we just shoveled snow from
Yeah.
one end of our street
Get
to
a
the
whole
other.
month, get for your whole neighborhood.
Yeah. What years were your snows here when you had them?
67,
That's the.
Yeah, 67?
76.
I got snowed in 76 at my job for
The
3
first one was
days.
58.
Yeah.
When I was working at Casting Service, that's the first year I could remember that they used helicopters
Yeah.
for help, rescue people,
Yeah, because 67, I know that covered a
Yeah,
huge
that's the
swath
year,
of
yeah,
northern
68.
Indiana.
The last one was 78, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I was one small one considered the other within 70.
Right.
The 67 and 76
68.
were terrible. I had 2 cars once, and they ditch on each end.
Yeah, that's what Jay got.
But you tried, yeah.
I saw that to you that time, my brother, he was snowed in 3 days, he off snowstorm, you know.
I was working at Arsenal with a
Yeah, that's
second and I just, the cars just left out there.
Exactly.
It looked like she was wrong. They had it burnt down, something burnt down or whatever, and they expanded it. And then this last remodeling made what it is now, so.
Okay.
But the American Legion, old building that sat in that thing in the back there at one time was the administration building. And it had moved out of, from the area that it had to where the old American Legion post was. In back of the garage, in that area there. Yeah. Yeah, I worked for the town for a while too, doing that, cleaning up, doing whatever. It's some sad times in a way, but it's some good times too. They earn some beans and potatoes and cornbread.
Well, we have a pretty rich history here in town.
An amazingly
And I
rich
hope-
history, yeah.
Somebody puts pen to paper,
Yeah.
What's so amazing about
so we
this
can all remember.
is a gathering in this little town of all American-born people, where you have other areas in other cities that were made from 3 or 4 different foreign elements, Italian,
Exactly.
Polish,
Immigrants,
you know.
yeah.
But this was all an
American.
American-made town.
That's very true, because a lot of the towns in this area in northern Indiana, a lot of Swedes, you know, Polish, you know, that come over in the immigration and really
Yeah,
have a lot of those roots run
They
deep.
were refugees, a lot
Yeah.
of them worked at Studebaker. I worked right with some
Yeah,
of them.
exactly.
And they were friendly and glad to be here and work at anything that they had, you know. Studebaker was active in that.
Exactly.
And there were a lot of people working there that had kin in those countries that were being overrun by the war.
Yes.
And they had a chance to come in as refugee stuff, so they come in and walk right into jobs.
Yeah, yeah,
And they were working,
Yeah.
they were workers on pay.
right.
But, you can go in those areas that with still there's nothing there.
Yeah, so much has changed over the years, you know. I said we were in such an industrial hub for so long, you know, and I said still a lot, but definitely not what I remember it as, even as, you know, as a kid where the jobs were and where everybody, you know, went to work and what they did for a living and where they lived. So lots of changes, not just here, but in the area, you know, all of northern Indiana. Any other questions, comments? Mrs. Dawson, great stories. Evelyn, anything else you'd like to?
I could talk all evening.
I enjoy this too, yeah, I thought I probably should wrap it up because I love hearing the history